Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We have a lot to talk about today because Bitcoin thrusted up to the prior range low and looks like it's rejecting right now. There's a clear line in the sand on the Bitcoin chart, which we need to discuss because it could potentially have ramifications on altcoins throughout the rest of the month. Could this be an opportunity to buy altcoins much lower throughout the August period? And what can we actually expect heading out of that period? These are all topics I'm going to touch on today, but who better to run us through the current market update than Paradise, who's been super in tune with the market recently. And let's, I think, kick off by discussing where we're sitting on Bitcoin, because that was a bit of a nasty breakdown, then a thrust up, then a rejection. So I think a lot of people are wondering what's next.
Yeah, so we went up only for quite a while, especially in alts. It's a healthy correction. You should expect a pullback, really. And where Bitcoin is right now, yeah, it looks a bit garish, but it's giving very clean levels to trade off. I think it's an intraday trading market right now as we bracket between these two ranges, which we'll go over in a sec. But I also think a lot of people are freaking out on low timeframes too much, where you can pretty much just zoom out to high timeframes and get a cleaner read on the market. But as it stands, BTC right now, obviously we had this range form, like 121 to 116K. We lost that range low. We're looking for it to be a deviation. It wasn't. Came back down, tested the 112K breakout level. Had a nice reversion bounce, like a 4-hour div printed there. Nice reversion bounce up into the underside of the range. And, this is pretty much the inflection point here, line in the sand. If we switch on the Noodle as well, you can see why we found some obvious resistance here as a sticky point. Got the monthly open, the quarterly VWAP there. Got the 4-hour 200 EMA, got the 4-hour Noodle, and obviously the structural low that we've bounced into. So I don't think anyone was expecting it to fly straight through that level. But now that we're rejected here, pretty much just opens the door that we have this 112 to 116, 117K range to play off, which is actually something I posted in the group the other day, which was this. Let's clean it up.
To me, generally speaking, it seems like momentum in the market has stalled a bit. Like, we've obviously seen a big run up, then we've seen consolidation. It seems to me, and we did discuss this like last week and the week before, if we did break that 115 to 116 level, it will probably take a little bit longer to actually recover from that. So I think we might be sitting in a situation now where, and this also lines up with seasonality, there might be like a slightly longer recovery period here. And obviously that can be, we'll speak about at the end of the video, how you can use that to your advantage to actually position for what comes slightly, mid to longer term. But it seems to me like momentum stalled. And I think it's very important in crypto to recognize when momentum is in your favor and when it's against you, and when it's, just not in either direction. And that's kind of where we find ourselves right now.
Yeah, I think one of my strong points personally is knowing when to put the foot on the gas and knowing exactly when to take it off. So as a momentum trader, that's probably exactly what you want. But, the cleanest read on anything right now is just to put the 4-hour Noodle on to just, are we above trend or are we below trend? You can see, we'll go through it in a bit, pretty much every altcoin is just bearishly retesting the 4-hour trend now, hence why we're seeing the sell-off. I'm also going to go through the others dominance chart to look at that. But basically what I was looking at on this, I broke it down into two ranges. This is something I did in the group the other day. So we had the all-time high range once we pushed up here. And then once we closed back down, this is like the previous all-time high range for me where we broke out. So now we're in that previous all-time high range. It's still just ranges, right? So we need to treat them as ranges. If we start flipping back above the 116K level into the all-time high range, and I think, that opens the door to at least go back to the range high and maybe even attack new highs. But I think before then, there's going to be a bit of consolidation. So therefore, hence the arrows you can see here, just looking to long sweeps of the lows and potentially short sweeps of the highs, or just take profit into them, however you want to play it. But I think the 4-hour Noodle has been just an excellent barometer for everything at the moment. We can go through altcoins and stuff, and I'll show you that in a bit. It
seems like the 112K level, maybe if you want to go into the daily or the weekly or a higher time frame chart, that's like a pretty key level in the market, right? Like in terms of, I watched Carl Dub's stream this morning. He says that his major line in the sand, or his big bull market momentum point, was sitting around that 110 to 111K zone. Like if we started breaking down there, we could be looking at a much bigger reset. So I'm wondering if you're seeing the same thing with that as the key level to be watching right now.
Yeah, 100%. I actually need to go over the weekly chart for that, but just get rid of drawings here. You can see we're trading under the daily Noodle now, which has been a good barometer since we closed above it here on retest. Obviously had that puke below it here, which was bought up quite quickly. That's what I kind of want to see. If we have this spill below, like here, I'd want to see that resolve quite quickly. Those quick resolutions are key. If we start finding acceptance under there, that means, you know, we start trading under there, multiple closes, then that's when you start to sort of be concerned. But if we just look at the weekly picture on BTC, so I've got multiple charts to bring up here. Yeah, this one. So in terms of the weekly, I was looking for this. This has played out like 5 times in a row now. Sorry, 4 times in a row. You can see every time we get this weekly SFP into weekly FVGs, it marks the bottom, an inflection point if we have an upswing. So I had the same here. Didn't quite close as a technical SFP there, except we got it here, closed into the, it swept into the weekly FVG there. Had the same thing again, rated it. We never quite closed below the FVGs, and that's what I'm looking for right now. As long as we hold inside this FVG up here, you can see it happen again here. It's been very reliable so far. So my kind of thing at the moment is not to overcomplicate anything. Like I'm just going to trust the same thing that's worked in the past to keep working until it doesn't. So we actually failed on the weekly close to close as an SFP. We closed just below. And currently right now, we're just finding a sticky point in that level we just marked out before, around like 114,500, give or take. So as long as we don't start closing below here, and that's the thing, the level Carl Dubes is talking about, around 110K. If we start accepting under this weekly FVG, then I think it opens the gate to trade lower down to the 109s and then 108s. Not really sure what the game plan would be if we get down there.
Becomes super tricky then.
Taking is okay. Yeah, it does. Yeah. You know, whether we come down and test this demand at 105K, I don't know how much I'd want to bid it. I know the market would be in complete despair if we hit that level. So bit of a tricky one, but, you know, it's not worth looking down there yet. Just want to play it day by day and see where we are relative to price each day. So as it stands now, I'd really love to see us close above this 114,500 level on the weekly time frame to start, you know, potentially pushing into the old range and push up again. Until that happens, I just think, yeah, intraday trading market. We just play the range mapped out like so in here.
I've personally got some ladder orders for Bitcoin. I actually triggered 2/5 of my total position over the last week, and then I have more ladder orders for Bitcoin down near, like, probably from 110, 111, 112. These are slightly bigger spot orders that I'm hoping to fill. And yeah, if we start trading below, I'll have to make a decision on whether to cut, but that's not really where my head's at right now. My head's at, like, you know, can I continue to build my stack during this like weaker seasonality period of the market before, you know, eventually we end up resolving higher, which is still my bias heading into Q4, Q1. Like if you look at August, September's, like in the stock market, they're historically pretty bad periods. And we're also actually, I want to get your opinion on the stock market while I'm on that topic. Like obviously it keeps making new highs. It recently just had a bit of a pullback. Like, do you think this is a bit of a, I guess, like risk for crypto, like a tail risk, considering, you know, it's run up so aggressively? Like if stocks come down to 6 to 6.1, like that level there, you could potentially see, obviously, like a little dip in stocks has already resulted in a bit of fear in the crypto market. So like a bigger dip could potentially, you know, be that trigger for that BTC flush. So yeah, what are you seeing on stock?
I mean, risk markets will track it, but as it stands, I keep seeing people talk about indexes at the moment. It's like 3% down, right? It's not too bad. Also, I think the 4-hour Noodle on SPX has been phenomenal on the run up on retests. You know, you get the deviation below. It keeps proving itself every time. Basically, it respects on the way up. You get a deviation below, completely flushes people out, get the reclaim, pushes up, keeps retesting it. Same thing. Maybe get a deviation below it here. Maybe come to this weekly supply level, which we marked out on the stream together like quite a while ago. We are sort of seeing diverging momentum across, not the daily, I think the 4-hour. Yeah, so seeing diverging momentum across the 4-hour. And actually the 4-hour was something I was watching was we're coming up and giving this, you know, potential bearish retest under the 50 level. So maybe that was a flush below the Noodle here, and it reclaims and holds because, you know, S&P just does its thing where it flushes
that's what it's been
very
doing
violently
recently,
and it recovers it in a week. Yeah, just does the thing. But
I guess,
you know,
the only reason I'm asking the question is because if we're down 3% and Bitcoin's already come down 10 to 15%, and altcoins more with just a little bit of a sneeze on equities, that probably paints the picture that if you did come down to that weekly supply zone, that would probably cause mayhem in crypto. So it's an interesting period where, like, yeah, I did a tweet on this the other day, like, stocks sneeze, Bitcoin flinches, alts puke. That's kind of the playbook right now.
Pretty much
like
it.
Stocks to me look stronger than crypto. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. Apart from Ethereum, altcoins and Bitcoin objectively look weaker than the stock market to me right now.
I think also, do they map? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that flush on S&P was on the 31st of July, which was, yeah, bang on when we started really selling off in BTC. So pretty much what you said, the whole sneeze and cough analogy. But yeah, I think if it comes down lower, then obviously this is going to take some time to resolve, which is something we discussed at the beginning of the stream. But yeah,
I think it's a big opportunity. Sorry for cutting you off again. We're on a slight, if people comment, it's because we're on a slight lag. It's actually quite difficult we're both traveling, so we both have bad internet. So it's hard to, like, have that read, unlike an in-person podcast, of like when to interject and when not to. But yeah, I was going to say at the end of the video, I will talk about my playbook a little bit, because I think ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, these can be like really good opportunities to accumulate the right stuff. I just want to make sure people are like aware of, where we're sitting and not delusional in the sense that, like, second half of August, we're going to instantly rocket to new highs, because that's not currently what I am anticipating, just based on price action, seasonality, and the correlation to equities.
Yeah, I think what you said before is we have your bids laddered lower. That's smart, because if we get a puke down there, you'd want it to be quick resolution, right? You want it to be a sharp wick in, fills your orders, and then bounces back out. Now, if it starts accepting under there, I mean, your invalidation is pretty easy. You're only taking a few % haircut if we actually start accepting under there and we don't really get the bounce. So I think it makes sense to have stink bids in that area, right? Not even stink bids at this point. It's only a couple of % down, but it makes sense to have your orders in there because, obviously every man and his dog probably going to have them there too. Maybe you want to front run it a bit. But I think if it can't actually find support there with the amount of people that are looking to bid that area, then something's changed and the dynamic of the regime has changed. And therefore, you probably wouldn't want to be in that position. You probably want to wait for it to find a bottom. And then you start scaling in once that bottom is found.
We do have a high volume node. I noticed at 107, though. Could that be also a level we could flush down to in that event?
I mean, yeah, you want those gaps to be filled. We kind of need to go to a bigger time frame. Obviously, this is a visible range volume profile, so it's only going to show what's on this, or we zoom in. But if we actually just go to this range here, let it load for a sec.
And I'm not trying to be like, I'm not bear farming here. I'm just genuinely like, as someone that wants to buy lower, I'm just trying to work out where to set my bids, because this would be a big opportunity.
Yeah, 100%.
So we may as well.
Look, we just actually mark out with we mark out with a low volume node start here and here. This is where I expect us to bracket and range, right? So it's like 109 to 116. Obviously, I refined that to like 110 before. Can even use this node in here. But yes, if we fall down, the next logical place for it to find support based on volume is around 109. It's basically 110K because it's 109,965. So right there, this gap effectively could get filled right down to that level. And that's why you want a sharp wick there, because if we start accepting under that, you've also got the daily demand there in this pocket. So if we start coming down, you want the sharp wick up. And if we actually just cannot get above and we start accepting there, then it's possible we rotate down to the other side. And this is not where you want to be holding any positions, because if this happens with BTC, alts would absolutely get smoked. I don't think this happens personally, but worth having on the radar. It's just worth mentioning these levels on stream for people at home who want to also.
I'm expecting a quick bounce if it happens. That's why I'm setting orders, and I'm not going to do it manually because I don't. Could be overnight. You just don't know.
Exactly. But yeah, we should have a look at ETH while we discuss this. ETH looks better to me.
Same.
Looks like a much more attractive market. Why does my screen stop working?
But it's interesting how we've seen that rotation. It seems to me there's been a bit of a rotation between Bitcoin and ETH, and Bitcoin seems a little bit exhausted. We even saw at the top, funnily enough, at like around 115 to 120, a lot of old dormant whale wallets started selling Bitcoin, and that was met with a bunch of positive headlines as well. So we had positive headlines and whales selling, And that was kind of a signal for me that, you know, momentum stalled for a little bit. I don't think it's a macro top signal because a lot of the on-chain metrics just aren't even close. You'd expect them to be a bit closer for it to be a macro top, although it is a discussion. But ETH, you know, in the midst of this Bitcoin sell-off, actually looks a lot stronger. And it makes me think that, I don't know whether there's a direct rotation, but there's definitely some sort of like catch-up trade here happening, especially with the ETF flows.
Yeah, 100%. And there's not even any need to look at ETH BTC. Like, just look at it in terms of where is in the Noodle. So BTC lost it, now giving it a bearish retest on the daily. You go to Ethereum, bullish retest on the daily, and look at the reaction of it. So in terms of trends, you know, much better looking market to me. Also, I think you and I mentioned last stream this bearish divergence on the daily. We were looking for that to play out. That pretty much marked the top for ETH, sold off up to that, and it reset at the 50 level. Nice bounce off the Noodle. Didn't quite get down to daily FEG at the monthly level. But what I'm watching for is if we do reject here, so it's currently rejecting off a monthly level again, you can also see this is a daily supply level here, the point of breakdown. So finding, you know, sticky point there, a bit of rejection. If we do come down, like maybe BTC chops and alts, just there's no sort of appetite for them, and they start to sell off. I think this actually makes a very good level of value down here, around like 3,300. It's a monthly pivot level. It's the daily FEG. I just think, yeah, a simple flush down. So I think there's a VWAP in there as well, quarterly maybe. Simple flush down to that would be good. And there's also effectively, you could just treat this as like inducement lows. So looking for a sweep of those lows into this POI here. I think this would be a very good level. And with ETH, like if we don't get that flush down, the next simple one is just pushing up to that 4K level, which we've discussed many times now.
And that's big.
It would just be a breakout above here. Yeah, it's like, you know, fourth time it'll be retested, probably breaks. If we get up there and start forming some low time frame bullish accumulation, yeah, and we get above that, then if you didn't catch a flush low, you're just chasing the momentum trade in that. And whether you want to play ETH or just like betas or whatever else, I think, you know, that breakout's going to be worth noting because it's probably going to resolve somewhat.
By the way, that's when alts pump. If people are watching this wondering when are my altcoins going to pump, it's when ETH breaks the all-time high. And yeah, none of us know exactly when that's going to happen, but just looking at this chart and the momentum and how long it took to break last time, you'd say like October, November is probably what it looks like time frame wise. Would you agree with that, Paradise? Like just based on price action currently?
You mean in terms of like previous fractals?
Yeah, just looking at like like the current move and then comparing that to the time it took to consolidate below previous highs prior. Just looking at the rough, like I'm just giving really rough timelines because no one knows. It looks like October, November, like on the chart to me would be a realistic like breakout. Obviously, it could happen at any moment, right? But just based on what we're seeing on Bitcoin, the current weakness and how that might take some time to resolve, I'm thinking like at least post mid-September. But I don't know what you're seeing.
Just kind of doing it level to level at the moment. So what I've been doing lately, I won't go over it too much. We'll save it for Thursday stream where I've got more of the time on my side. But basically, I'm just going to like yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly timeframes and just marking out key support resistance levels. And at the moment, I'm just playing everything level to level. It's been a really good strategy, especially in tandem with the Noodle. But, you know, currently rejecting the monthly. If we start consolidating, if we start accepting above here and we, you know, clear this supply and we start doing low time frame bullish accumulation up here, I don't think it takes much to just give this a pop. We just need to see that pop sustain. If it does, I think this moves up quite swiftly. And, you know, obviously 5K would be the next target for me. Nice round number. But in terms of how long it takes to play out, not sure. If BTC range is currently where it is, like we marked before, this could obviously just range at the same time. The only thing I wonder with that BTC range is whether risk goes off the market. So if BTC chops, people start getting sort of scared and they start unloading stuff, or we just sort of see, you know, BTC sideways and that the risk appetite goes back into alts where people get impatient.
Well, ETH BTC looks interesting. Like it's forming a bit of a range here. If you look at my chart, I think it's up on H4. You can just see it's just been oscillating. So this actually looks stronger. Like Bitcoin dipped from 120 to 114 and ETH BTC maintained pretty much this H4 Noodle into the prior ETH BTC highs. So like you'd expect like in previous market structures, this would already be down here or starting to break down on a BTC dip, but that's not the case. It's actually, so this to me looks like it wants to go higher. And that's, I guess, the only Yeah, that's the main consolation you have for altcoins. Even if Bitcoin does sweep, maybe the market maintains slightly more bullish structure due to this, at least on Ethereum ETH betas. But then, there's a trickle down effect for sure.
For sure. Maybe we pull back into the H4 Noodle, which is showing respect on the support side on the way up. Maybe it finds a bounce there, so something to watch.
Yeah,
I haven't been paying attention to that actually. Another thing I think, when people are always like, when's the right time to rotate into alts? If you want to switch to my screen.
Yeah, but this looks very interesting on the daily as well. How this is consolidating.
Yeah, that looks good.
So
actually, I'll show you something quickly. The reason I'm going to show you something very quickly with ETH BTC. Probably won't have that much time to cover the alts today, but that's okay. With ETH BTC, right? Yeah. ETH BTC on, let's say, the weekly chart. Something we did cover, but I'm just going to rehash it from last week. You can see here, this is the high volume node pocket. I've just marked out either side of this high volume node. It's the POC for the entire chart. This data goes back to 2015.
Yeah.
Naturally, we're not just going to pump through that in one go. It's been, the biggest volume point on the chart. Now you can see what we did do is we actually look here on the weekly chart. Once we lost the weekly noodle, it was a bearish retest every time. I think we did like 10, 12, 13 bearish retests of it. And now we finally flipped it. So flipped it and we're inside that high volume node cluster. We're also finding consolidation in there. So this consolidation looks quite good. It's a bullish consolidation on the weekly time frame above the weekly noodle, which is currently being tested as support, previously resistance. So I think this is a really good level. I just think it's going to potentially bracket in here for a while. But once we get above this, this is going to be alt season to me, quote unquote, until that point. But yeah, I hate using the term, but I know it resonates. Now, what I've also been using a lot is the others dominance chart. I've been finding it's really, really handy. Obviously you can gauge. Whoa, what's going on here? Obviously you can gauge when alt season is and whatnot.
Travel setup, right? It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
You don't have the normal mouse or the normal. I'm experiencing the same thing right now.
Got the mouse. I just the keyboard's not hitting the function right. Yeah. So in terms of the others dominance chart, everyone knows what BTC dominance is. This is just for alts, excluding ETH and BTC and stables. Stables aren't in others, are they? Let me get rid of this. So this right here, this move up after this consolidation, this was where ETH rallied. This is like the Pico bottom of ETH right to the Pico top of ETH. You can see how alts reacted to that. You can also see every retest of the H4 Noodle on the others dominance chart on the way up was super bullish. Now we chop through it, just a standard like trend shift regime, and then we get under it and we start giving it bearish retests the whole way down. So obviously we had that pop on alts the other day when BTC moved a couple of days ago. And now we're finding resistance at this daily level, which is also at the H4 Noodle. So I think, quite simply, just go on to the H4, H1, whatever you want. If you're not sure when to, I get asked this question a lot in the group. It's like, when do we jump into alts? Because BTC looks good. Does BTC look bearish? When do we leave alts? Just simply reference the others dominance chart. It's pretty good. And it's just bracketing between these levels as we speak. But if we start flipping this level and getting above the H4 Noodle on this, I think, a bit more risk on alts. But I think for now, we just need to sort of see, while BTC chops, how that resolves. So whether people FOMO into alts or they start unloading them. That's basically what I'm watching day to day at the moment.
Nice. I wanted to, let's talk about Litecoin now, because this is a trade, and then we'll go into other alts that you took in the Discord. Very, very good move. So even though it's not alt season, he had a very short alt season, but it wasn't a sustained one yet. Still managing to get some pretty nice trades. So it's interesting that even in this market, you can still have these little breakout trades here and there, which can give you good opportunities. I saw your OG post here, and then, that was a very, very good one. Run me through what that setup was, and then maybe we can also use that as a frame of reference for catching similar setups in this market. Yeah,
sure. I can give you exactly that. So we looked at BTC with that weekly sweep into the FEG. And we looked at the whole. We looked at Ethereum, how it's bouncing off the daily noodle versus BTC, which is rejecting off the daily noodle. Quite simply, I'm just looking for things that are holding bullish structure as opposed to things that aren't. So anything that's trading under any meaningful time frame for the noodle right now, I don't really care about, because there's so many coins in the market. Why fret over something you want to trade if it's not looking good when you can go and look at something else. But as it stands, so Litecoin for me was, I'll just draw it out quickly. It was just what we saw in BTC before. We had a weekly FVG there. We had this low. We swept into it. Sorry, it's a bit messy. So when I saw that, I was like, right, this looks good. We're also bouncing off the daily Noodle. So basically what I said in the last stream for the members, sorry, for the viewers, was to sort of treat yourself like a journalist more than a trader. You basically want to collect pieces for a story that you have to submit to the editor before it gets published. I think it's a really helpful sort of mindset to have. So you're just building a case, so to speak. I guess you could call yourself a detective too. But, you know, we had that sweep into the weekly FVG. If you go to the daily, drop down time frame, we're bouncing, you know, that SFP occurred inside the daily Noodle bounce. So already to me, this looks good. Then I just went down to the H4. I was like, right, what is this setup giving us? If I just clear this out for a sec. So what it was giving us was a deviation under a key level. So this is a quarterly SR level. Once that deviation started to resolve, we also had what I deleted before. We had this diagonal level. So my favorite setups are when you get these deviations, they close above and they break through a diagonal at the same time. We also had the benefit of it reclaiming the 4-hour trend at the same time. So this to me was like an A++ setup for my system. And then profit taking was quite simple on it too. Didn't want to overstay my welcome, but first TP was at the previous week's high here. Leviathan key levels indicator is really helpful for this. And the second TP this morning to close it out was this previous month's high. You can see that's already potentially topping out there. Obviously, momentum stalling. I've got like a small runner left of 10%, which is not much, just in case we take out these equal highs from higher up. But, you know, other than that, it's a very simple trade. And the good thing about this setup is you're going to see it across the board. It's just a matter of timing it. So, you know, so many alts right now are just under key levels, you know, key quarterly, yearly, monthly levels, whatever. If strength, like broader strength returns to the market, you can expect these widespread deviation setups to occur. You're going to see this, 100%. You're going to see the build. And once you get the break, you just basically market long into that break. Your invalidation is closing back under that level, and you're just riding momentum because these things generally resolve quite quickly due to short squeezes and whatnot. And you can catch the move on it and you can rotate and move on to the next. So this is my favorite markets.
That's why people need to be in the Mars High Club so they can get the setups as soon as they happen. Unfortunately, we can't make a YouTube video every single time there's a setup, but you know, especially when these things are time sensitive. But we can post the charts in the Discord. We actually onboarded obviously you've been amazing, great track record. I think Morin's been great. Doc's obviously super established, but we've actually onboarded a new trader as well who's had a good start, hasn't he, Paradise?
Yeah, friend of mine. We've been chatting for years in DMs, and I was like, we should get him on board because he is just a phenomenal trader. And you can already see in the past 2 weeks, he's just hit the ground running. He's been slaying trades up and down. Short in the tops really well, caught in the bottoms really well.
It's called the Surf Club. So we actually have Paradise Island, which is yeah, we've kind of gone with like the travel theme on this. That's why it's called Mars High Club, like aviation theme. I think it's quite cool. So we have Paradise Island, Fabian's information desk, CS small caps, Morin's runway. He's like high time frame swing. Doc is similar. But now we have the Surf Club, and I think his strategy is good because we are kind of missing, I think, a little bit more. I mean, you were handling low time frame stuff, but I wanted someone else that was trading like, you know, US session. I think that was a gap. So Surf coming in with his analysis, I've been super, super impressed with him. I'm sure we'll get him on the channel at some point as well, but he's posting setups all the time and he's been nailing them as well. So that it's been a good start. You could see, yeah, a very, very, very good start. So I think Mars High Club is, in my opinion, the best it's ever been. I think if you're a member, you'd probably agree if you've been in there since the beginning. So join the group if you guys want. I was going to say daily analysis, but it's really hourly because we kind of cover all time zones now across the market.
Yeah, that's been good. We've got very similar systems. So generally when the market's hot, we're both sort of running in tandem together, which is good.
And my system's like been a bit slow over the past week. Like, and I go in sporadic bursts, and this is kind of why you need to be in there to like capture them. Like 2 weeks ago, I had some ridiculous trades, like about 4 to 5 X's in a row, and just some huge other trades. And then it just completely stopped for like 2 weeks. But then during that period, Paradise went on a run. So when I slowed down, you went on a crazy trade streak. And then so it kind of oscillates. And I think that's a good thing. We know when we have an edge. I don't try and force my edge. I'm not shill low cap like on-chain coins now because I think, you know, the market's just a little bit choppy and shaky. Whereas in a good market, it can 5x super quick. And in the right environment, that could change in 2 days, right? If Bitcoin reclaims, you know, I'll start making those calls again. And your setups might change and vice versa. So I think it's just a good system we've got with making sure we capture the most optimal strategy at any time in the market instead of trying to force. I see a lot of other groups trying to force trades all the time. And I don't really agree with that. I think by covering all bases, we make sure people only get the highest quality stuff at any given moment.
I think another good thing is all the traders across different time zones have different systems. So I've been in some groups before where, you know, everyone's pretty much a 1 minute scalp trader. So that's
and that doesn't work for groups.
1
minute scalping doesn't work for groups because you can teach it, right? You can teach the strategy for people to fish for themselves. But the reality is most people don't put in the required effort because low time frame scalping is so hard to develop that system. So the calls fall flat because not unless you're literally on the group 24/7, odds are you're going to miss the setup. And it's just a recipe to get people wrecked. So I think the good thing with our group is that we're not all like, obviously we have some scalps, but it's not all just scalping. There's high time frame swing stuff. There's setups that you'll post weeks before you take a trade that people can add to their watch lists. Fabian and I are focusing on spot stuff for people that don't even want to trade or just want to like invest short to midterm or even long term. So yeah, I think it's a good mix. We won't keep banging the drum because maybe some people, especially if you're already in the group, you're like, yeah, shut up, get on with the show. So maybe we just finish with some altcoin setups. Yeah, and then I'll finish through these quickly with my analysis because I want to just talk to people about my broader strategy. I'm going to do a video on this later as well, but I'll kind of give you guys a prequel.
I'll go through these quickly. I won't go through them all. We'll save some for Thursday. I'm trying to remember which were the good ones. I actually think Pump looks like a really good market right now.
Interesting.
Just in terms of where it is. Yeah, well, like just the rounded bottom on it. So obviously I had that terrible sell-off. But how it's recovering now. So it's got this nice rounding bottom. It's just been pushing up, starting to reclaim the noodle.
A nice round.
My favorite setup for bottoming alts is that exactly. That's the favorite. You want it to fall in the rounding bottom. You want it to get the sort of breaks in market structure. And right now, like this is actually a key inflection point as we speak. It's basically pressuring into the range high between the noodle and that. Forget that break. I think it's like an easy move up into the next weekly level, which is like 25%. So definitely something I'm looking for a breakout trade on. That'll probably eventuate today. Just go through the previous strong ones.
I'll take that trade
we can probably save this.
I'll be watching the channel in the group.
We could probably save this just by saying, and I think this will keep a lot of people out of trouble, is, 4-hour noodle right now. I know I got on about a lot, and if you're not in the group, you probably don't have access to it, but you can just see how well it's respected on something like BONK. Every 4-hour retest has been a buy. Until it wasn't, it chops through it. That's your risk off signal. And then it loses it, and it starts giving me the bearish retest. See right now, BONK had a nice move up, just the mechanical bounce off the lows. Now it's come straight into the 4-hour noodle. And we can just flip through these real fast and just see what's actually worth looking at. So XRP potentially worth looking at. Had this big deviation into the daily noodle, which is also weekly FVG. It basically did the over-under setup, reclaimed this key low over here. So I think, XRP looks really good. It just wants to hold above the noodle. CRV is actually looking quite good too, but it's rejecting off the quarterly level plus the noodle. Altcoins the same, rejecting. SPX rejecting. So all these things that have these bounces, I remember on the timeline, people were foaming into this stuff. Not foaming, sorry. People were foaming because they missed it. A lot of people.
So is now the time to de-risk,
which is good.
If you're in these coins, is it now the time to de-risk a bit? Or
it depends what your status is. If you bought spot down here or something, potentially maybe you want to take some profit. It is doing a bearish retest. If you caught these lows down here, absolutely I'll be taking profit. Some of the things I caught the lows on, like BTC and a couple of other alts, I've definitely de-risked some of them into the 4-hour noodle. We can just flip through and you can see, this can be your barometer right now for seeing what you want to buy. Is it below the 4-hour? Yes, don't bid it. And if it's coming into it, like take profit on it if you own a coin that's coming in. Something like Pump that's reclaiming it and pushing up. This is the market you want to be in for a momentum trade. ENA chopping through it, not really much to say. ENS potentially losing it, but potentially also bouncing off the low, so I have to watch that one. PENGU rejecting and Hype rejecting. So a lot of these things that had great bounces, don't FOMO in too much to that. Don't read too much into it. It's like, oh, it was so strong off the lows, I want to bid it. It's like, yeah, but it's now rejecting at a point. So this is not where you long it. I think the key message to everyone here is I'd only be looking to long stuff if it comes down for another retrace, maybe sweep some lows, or if it flips the noodle and starts consolidating above it. And they're your 2 points. Right now, if you see a chart that's bouncing into it, you don't want to touch it. So I think, less is more right now. Being super selective is going to save most people. And I'm being super selective. Like I've only taken an LTC trade yesterday, despite many other good setups, just because I wanted to hone in on the absolute like A+ ones. I think when stuff's chopping sideways, you shouldn't be taking Bs or B+ setups or whatever. Like maybe some As, but like just go for the A+. If there's like 5, nice A setups and 1 A+, just trade the A+ and maybe lower risk on an A setup.
I think that advice is the perfect place to wrap up the stream. I had a tweet kind of focusing on this 2 days ago. Basically, like my playbook right now is I have my stink bid set on Bitcoin. I have similar levels on high time frame alts, quality alts, so alts with narrative alignment, technical alignment, relative strength alignment to the market. These are the alts that I'm DCAing. So you run through 2 scenarios there. Either we have a reclaim flip that I'll get into like lower time frame positions if we flip the H4 noodle. But the main setups I'm prepping for right now, because these are the things, like, if we start to reclaim, we don't really need to prep. We can just like long as there's confluence in the right setup. Whereas where I need to spend more time prepping now is, okay, if we do get one more flush, I want to make sure I have the levels on the alts. And I'll probably talk about them in another show, but I already gave like a decent list on my last show. Things like PENGU, some of the other alts you showed as well, ENA, the top strong coins in the market, maybe something like Hyperliquid if it goes back down. These are the coins that I would be adding. So they have narrative alignment, technical alignment, relative strength alignment on a mid to high time frame versus ETH. And then the thing I would definitely focus on, and this is so important if you're getting entries at this stage in the cycle, have a high time frame invalidation level. Like even for my Bitcoin bias, I'll have an invalidation level. I'll give myself a bit of wiggle room on that. Same with alts. Like if Hyperliquid ends up, flushing down into a zone I'm interested in, I'll have some sort of invalidation somewhere between 10 to 20%. That's where getting the right entries at the right point starts to matter, because then your risk reward's better on the trade. This is an interesting one because it kind of contradicts my strategy. No leverage. This tweet was aimed at the spot investors. I definitely use leverage. I know Paradise does as well. But in terms of like getting spot, like high time frame buys, I don't think leverage is the best idea. Leverage is best for, and maybe you have a different view, Paradise, but if you get like a reclaim setup, like, SPX flips the H4 noodle, that's when I'll use leverage to capture that like quick move to the upside, that explosive move. If we wick down into a zone, I personally don't like using heavy leverage in a market like this, because things can just be a little bit shaky. It can wick slightly lower than you expect, get stopped out. So if I do use leverage, it's lower on those wick buys, like 3 to 5x. But I think for most people, you can bid spot. And the last thing is be patient, because I think, so many people are rushing to get entries. I'm seeing it in my Discord today. I'm actually about to answer questions. In my questions channel that I answer every day, a lot of people like, is it time to enter all? Should we buy the dip? I think just be patient and wait for the right setup. You might only get one setup a week, but it's better to construct your portfolio carefully over multiple weeks than to try and rush in and make a bunch of changes all at once. That generally doesn't land up working out too well. So that's my overall like playbook right now. But I'll do a video that gives some specific examples for that probably tomorrow.
Yeah, and I'll go over my complete strategy for, a simple high time frame strategy for beginners that aren't classified as traders. And we can go over that on the next stream, which I think is Thursday. And I'll give you the very simple framework I've been using, and it's been making trading really easy. One thing I wanted to touch on quickly, we just said, I was going through all those alts saying you don't want to bid PENGU here. It's hitting the 4-hour noodle. Don't take that as a bearish signal. It just means you're now looking for a flip if you didn't catch the low, because once you go to the daily, these are all bounces off the daily noodle. This is a good sign from a high time frame perspective. Also got POIs there. But after that bounce, what it relies on is then flipping the 4-hour noodle, then the 1-hour noodle, so on and so forth. So right now, what I'm saying is if it bounces to the 4-hour noodle, you want to see it clear it. And if it doesn't, you're potentially looking for it to come back down into the daily noodle. So you might get a better bid. So I'm just saying, don't buy into the dynamic resistance levels here. If it flips it, sure. And if it doesn't, you can aim lower. And all you do for that is just go out to a high time frame. We covered this on 2 streams ago. whole strategy regarding the Noodle and just look for it to come back down to this level. Because potentially, if we're going to see BTC bracket between these two levels, we're probably going to see alts do this as well, and you'll get better buys, I think. So PENGU makes a lot of sense down here. I think ENS is another one. Also bouncing off the daily Noodle, also probably brackets around here. So I think don't FOMO the stuff right now, but you'll get those opportunities soon enough.
100%. Good place to wrap it up. Thanks for joining me. We'll be back in a couple days, and yeah, in the meantime, I'll catch you guys in the Discord, and yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for joining, Paradise, and good luck in the markets.